Brands, companies, teams, they over time learn what's making them successful and lean further and further into that. So I'm wondering, in your 30 years at Nike, what did you see Nike realize while you were there and lean more into in terms of the values of the organization, how it operates from a marketing perspective, a culture perspective, or whatever? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think, and I'm a brand advisor now with established brands and startups. And, what Nike had from the beginning is such a clear brand house, if you will. Its belief, its mission, its vision, its values. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? What do you believe? What's your promise to your audience? And what are the characteristics and traits that compose your brand in that pursuit to deliver inspiration and innovation to everyone? And so imagine the power of that in terms of everyone is clear as they walk through the door to show up to work, why they're there. And I say this because a lot of brands can't say that. A lot of startups haven't even got there yet because they're just trying to perfect their product and get it to market. And so first and foremost, this idea that authenticity and serving the athlete is the anchor at all times. So even though you're trying to be maybe the most influential and coolest brand on earth, and there's an art to doing that, you always have to go back and ensure that it serves the athlete in the deepest way possible. And that's why, maybe we'll get to this later, but I always use that mantra, don't chase cool, because most likely you're not going to catch it. And that idea that your authenticity, in terms of what I've learned over and over again, keep going back to, your authenticity is your cultural currency. The minute your audience can no longer see your original pursuit, and every company's a bit different, is the day they kind of leave you and go engage and partner with someone else.
And that's in part because you've left yourself, right? In the pursuit of cool. You've abandoned your authenticity. You talk about that in chapter 6 of your book, Emotion by Design, which is out now. You talk about the Air Force One in that chapter as an example of success in that realm. So why is the Air Force One shoe an example of Nike not chasing cool?
Well, first and foremost, it's an innovation that was created in 1982 that was created to serve the basketball athlete, right? It wasn't created to make a statement in culture. It was created to make a statement on the court. And the designer was obsessed with creating something that gave that athlete an advantage. And it's really hard to create, if you want any chance for a product to ultimately become a cultural icon, if you will. And by the way, brands don't get to decide that, your audience does over time. Then you must, the inception and creation of that product has to start with what's the benefit that you're trying to deliver? What's the problem you're trying to solve? So that's part one. And the fact that someone like Moses Malone, who was a center for the Philadelphia 76ers at the time, won on the court in the Air Force One. So that's cool. That's proving that innovation right out of the gates. And so from there, as it grew in stature, what was great about all the teams that played a role across all the different disciplines at Nike to bring this to market every year is all of the storytelling was rooted in authenticity. This colorway came from this basketball court. This colorway was from this New York outdoor court, and this player scored X amount of points. The stories are rooted in emotion, and you as a enthusiast for this sneaker got to take part in a little bit of that. And as I talk about in the book, at some point stories no longer, belong only to the brand. They get passed down. And so the Air Force One is interesting because this year, again, it was the highest selling sneaker out there. And so it's very accessible. And yet it's also, you could argue, the most culturally relevant sneaker as well. And so it's aspirational. And so my point is that's by design. You're ensuring that there's a level of the authentic storytelling, and that those that you are partnering with, the ambassadors, if you will, that show up in your communication on that, have a real connection and affinity for the Air Force One. Just like Kendrick Lamar grew up with the Nike Cortez sneaker. Very real relationship with the shoe that's very much a part of LA. And so when we partnered with Kendrick Lamar, it's coming from a shared passion, and that authenticity comes through to your audience, right? When it doesn't, that's when it feels like you're chasing cool. And so I always say, just make sure your connections are really, really clear to your audience in terms of who you partner with. What is the real purpose of your product beyond all the shiny new partnerships and other things you can do? You still have to kind of go back to its roots.